Yo, yo.
Hey, hey.
Are we live?
We are. Yeah, I had to check for a second, but we are.
My apologies for being a loser. I had some stupid technical issues at the last second that were totally preventable had I been more intelligent. I set up so gotta say, so last week is our most views ever, biggest audience for any unreported so far. And that is before I fixed my studio, which we're working on over here in the central headquarters. It's part of the West Campus. I don't know if you've been down there, Michael.
Yeah.
We have to take the tram to get to the unregistered West Campus. You're not familiar? Yeah.
Oh,
Great thing is, no, but seriously, the cafeteria over there is so much better than in Maine. You're in Maine, right? Fourth floor?
Yeah, I'm in Maine. Craft services has been kind of slouching down
here. Is that fucking dude still that corner office? You know what I mean? That guy? Mm-hmm. With the hair, that guy? Yeah, so things are going well over here at Unregistered International. And we're working on set design for me. So Unregistered will look better. Unreported will look better. Michael will continue to be his beautiful self. So yeah, this is just the beginning. Those of you who have watched us in the first year of our existence, just know that you were on the front edge of something really big. And someday you'll be able to say, I was one of the first unreported fans.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and as a proud metrosexual podcast, we definitely called each other last night and coordinated the light blue shirts. So I'm glad that set design is working out as well.
Oh my God, look at that.
Yeah.
God. Well, I mean, you know, when two white guys sit next to each other like this, it doesn't really matter what color shirt they wear. Mm-hmm. I mean, can you tell the difference between white guys? I've always had a hard time.
Yeah, and apparently the Supreme Court is also having a hard time. Or maybe they have
to Supreme Court's having a hard time distinguishing between who and what. What was your point there?
Oh, white guys. I guess they all look the same to the Supreme Court.
Oh, we all look the same, meaning, yes, well, we are. There is an irreducible sameness about us, according to the Supreme Court and everyone else who talks this way, which is that we belong to the same race, and therefore we are fundamentally the same people, fundamentally with the same needs and desires and the same status in society. Amazingly, it's conferred upon you at birth, you know. So that's cool. Like, I'm glad that, you know, they gave us the top spot, but then they decided to hate whoever's on the top spot. And it's not been so fun for us. You know, for a long time, they let the white guys run everything. And they were like, awesome, because they saw what like running prisons and police forces was like, you know, they saw what like being the mayor of a city is like, you know, they saw the nastiness of running things, of managing, of governing. And they're like, you fucking white guy idiots, like, please go ahead, bash yourselves against the head your entire lives, which is exactly what white guys did. White guys took on the worst, not the most important, the worst responsibilities. You think being a mother is not an important responsibility? No, white guys took on the responsibilities that are the most dangerous to one's own health, mentally and physically. We're the ones who said, oh no, we should fight in the wars. Oh no, we're the ones who should chop down trees. We're the ones who should go on boats in the middle of the ocean fishing for salmon. Yeah, we're the ones who should get up and to fix the power line during a thunderstorm. And that's what we did, you know. And now they're saying, hey, you suck for doing that. So I say to them, can we have a fair trade? So I let you go mine coal and put on some infantry boots and send you to Ukraine in exchange for you treating me like I'm a princess. How about that? A coddled princess who has no public responsibilities whatsoever. Let's do that. Let's do that.
Yeah, the infantilization of minorities is in full effect today.
I mean, they're attempting to infantilize everyone, but yes, this is when they go full on, you know, black people are babies. That amazing tweet by that one woman who, I mean, admittedly,
I think Erica Marsh is a bot.
There's something off about that, but I mean, but it's only her choice of words. I mean, she says something like, black people in a meritocratic society can never succeed, I think she says, right?
Yeah.
Which, right, if spoken by someone in a white hood would be like, oh, right, of course, that's what you believe. You believe that black people will never succeed in a meritocratic society. Yet she's a Democrat, not just I mean, her bio says she's like a Democratic op, like she's worked in the Democratic.
She worked on the Biden campaign, worked on the Obama campaign. That's what the bio says, but to me, it looks like a parody account or a bot account.
But don't you think we would know that by now? Don't you think someone would have said that on Twitter? It's been all day.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, man.
They've said
anyway,
it in other words. They've said it.
Doesn't matter. Yeah. I mean, that is the argument, though. She nonetheless just used different words for the argument that's been made on MSNBC all day long, which is that, and they even make predictions. They'll say, "Oh no, 50% of black applicants will not get into these colleges now, now that affirmative action is unconstitutional."
Yep,
right? They say,
yeah,
all these black kids will fail those tests. Okay, that sounds fairly deterministic. Eddie Glaude of Princeton University, African American Studies Department. I know some of those people.
Yeah.
In the AFAM studies field in the Ivy Leagues. It's this whole little incredibly fabulous the way they're dressed. Mafia, really, because there's about 20 of them, and they all dress better than anybody I've ever known. And they hold these little super elite, cushy mid six-figure salary positions that are lifetime appointments. They get to teach the same thing. I mean, anyway, Eddie Glaude is on MSNBC. I bring this up because he is one of the main commentators on MSNBC, and he all day was opining about how black people are going to fail. They're going to fail in all these ways because the white man won't give them a hand up. Eddie Glaude, man, his glasses, though, are so dope. I mean, he's got like multiple colors on the rims, and his shit is so tight. I mean, he rocks bow ties unironically and works it, you know, like he's that level. Super sexy guy. Talking about how, oh, I forgot to mention, like he has a lifetime appointment at Princeton University, you know? Oh, I did mention him. He's the guy with all those advantages and benefits I just mentioned. All those privileges, which were given to him because he's black, goddammit. He's somewhat talented, like thousands of professors, but he undoubtedly is treated the way he is because, which is as royalty. Black academics in the Ivy Leagues dress like royalty, which is my point here. And that is because they are the only people in our society who are treated like kings and queens. Eddie Glaude's one of them. Yeah, so affirmative action what it has actually done, yes, it's benefited white women, and they love to tell you that. No, it benefited black, middle, and upper class people who never spent a day in a housing project, and benefited them to the degree that they have lifetime occupations, jobs at upper middle class levels, and have to do virtually no work for it, and get to be on the media telling white people all around the country how bad they are and what they should do. Here's the best part. No one will ever disagree with you. This is the cool part about being a black academic. You will never once hear anyone disagree with you. No white person will disagree with you. I've witnessed this. I've been there, spent many, many years right there in those institutions in African-American studies, departments, programs, and courses. I taught African-American studies at Columbia University for 4 fucking years. I know these people. No one ever disagreed with them.
Well, the only person who ever disagrees with them is the naive white freshman who thought that, oh, this is an academic institution. We're supposed to debate and have ideas. And then they get immediately vilified and pariahed out of there.
Oh, yeah. I mean, please, it's not the level of harassment, self-surveillance, surveillance. I mean, there was a kid at Willamette University when I was there. That was my last gig. Quite an elite school. The day after the 2016 election, he wore a Trump sweatshirt to school, and he was expelled.
Wow.
Taken off campus right then and there.
Wow.
Security grabbed him.
For openly supporting the president-elect at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And even better, you know what the news was about this?
No.
The news was that many Willamette University students experienced trauma from being in the presence of a Trump sweatshirt. Anyway, affirmative action, today's news. This has been my little, my greatly premeditated, because I've been thinking about this issue, Lord of mercy, for decades. And I am one, my little premeditated homily, I don't know whatever you want to call this, but yeah. I was told, I mean, you know, I've written about this and a lot of people know this, but like I was twice turned down for a job in an institution where I was already working. So it wasn't like I came off the street, and I was a finalist in both cases. That was both twice at two different schools. This is Barnard College and Occidental College. I was told by faculty colleagues that I was turned down for the job because I was white. Straight up, explicit, boom. Now, of course, they said this to me over coffee at the corner cafe, not on campus. We had to take a walk so they could tell me this, you know, but so, and I know my son didn't get into Berkeley because of race. I know it because he got whatever. He got like the top fellowship in the UC system, and he got into every other campus in the UC system, but not Berkeley. I'm like, it's only because you look like me, kid. Sorry about that.
Well, I've talked to many professors when certain jobs open up around here, and the conversation that always happens is, should we give this to a black man or a white woman? And that's the hours-long conversation that always happens every single time is, you know, which will be better for us, a black man or a white woman?
Totally. So for those of you who have not been in elite universities, and I say elite because it's not all universities, by the way. In fact, I would bet at least 3/4 of universities in this country are not like this at all. Well, they're just factories. They're not really political in this way.
Here's the thing, though. The elite universities set the tone, and all the other universities under them aspire to be like that. So they're definitely falling in line.
True. It's sort of the way that public schools set the tone for the private schools at K through 12. Private schools often sort of end up aping what's in the public schools, which tells you about the power of government in shaping the broader culture. Because the private schools sort of read the culture and they say, shit, if we don't do what the government's saying, we're going to get in trouble. So they follow along with it. And so that's why they do all the DEI just as hard as anybody in the public sphere does.
Harder sometimes.
And harder totally. Oh my God, the shit I've been hearing. My girlfriend works in that world, and so I get a lot of inside information about private schools. There's a not at her school, another school right here. There's a class being given, and this is for freshmen. The title of the class, everyone, is Toxic Masculinity.
Oh, I could give a guest lecture on that as a.
Yeah. I wonder why they wouldn't ever invite you. Think about that. Freshman, high school freshman, a class on toxic masculinity. And you certainly know what they're going to say about toxic masculinity. You're not going to say it's practiced by people like Eddie Glaude. What I was going to say about universities, for those of you who haven't had the misfortune of have not had the misfortune of spending much of your life in one, like I did, and you have, is that they are undoubtedly, there's not even a close second, undoubtedly the most racist institutions in American society. There is no question about it. I saw racist, and I'm talking about policy decisions and things like hiring and admissions decisions made on solely racist grounds, every day, every single day. I would hear about somebody being let in because he was black, someone being denied admission because she was white, and the jobs, the tenure and the hiring and the fire. Oh, goodness gracious. These people would kill their own mama to hire some black person, to find a black person who's actually a good professor. And when they actually are good professors and black, like someone like Robin Kelly, I mean, who's at UCLA. I mean, that dude, like, he just went from like Harvard to Princeton to Columbia to USC to UCLA. He was like, yo, I went to LA. Now I want to have another university at a bigger salary. He can write his own ticket when you're that good at that level. Only 2,000, I just saw this stat today, only 2,000 black students scored higher than 1,400 on the SAT last year. So that's compared to something like, for whites and Asians, it's around 60,000 for each group, not even counting Latinos. So, I mean, you got 2,000 kids basically who can do academic work, roughly speaking. Maybe broaden it a little bit, say like, you know, maybe you got 3,000 black kids per year who can do academic work. I mean, like, can do any kind of significant academic work. And of those, how many do you think can become PhDs? And then every school in the country now must have black professors, right? This is a mandate for damn near every college in the country. How many colleges are there? How many thousands? It's a hell of a lot more than 3,000. I can tell you that much. So there just ain't enough to go around. And so this is why you get stone cold idiots teaching in colleges who happen to be black. They don't happen to be black. They're there only because they're black. And and all of us who have been in a college or university has seen this, right? Everybody, raise your hand if you've seen someone who clearly shouldn't be teaching, but was only there because they were black. And what does that do to our feelings about black people? What does that do to our perceptions of black people? What does that do to our belief in the merit of this person sitting next to us, who we would like to be peers with? See, those of us who actually like integration, we want to integrate with people we consider to be our peers. That's the whole point, so that we can be just friends. No one's above each other. There's no parent-child thing going on here. But that's exactly what affirmative action has taken away. It has put all the black people in those institutions, especially in universities where affirmative action is so rampant, determines so much. We have made it impossible for us, white people, to believe that this person is a peer, because they had to get a special dispensation to sit next to me. So what I'm being told is these are children. These are children who need a high chair, who need a booster seat. I mean, the whole thing, and of course, it's from top to bottom, fundamentally, from its very conception all the way through its application to today, fundamentally racist. It's just that the races are flipped around in the racist calculation. That's all. So that white people get, yeah.
A good example of this for people who want to look it up is the case of Michael Moreno, who was do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-mm.
Okay, he was a college freshman. He's basically the college freshman I was basically talking about. He tried to join the debate team at his school. I forget what school it was. But the professor there was this professor, and his was this black professor who had won all these national debate competitions. And his tactic of debate, this professor's tactic of debate, was to sidestep the question entirely, call the foundations of the question racist, and engage in literal slam poetry where he's quoting rap songs and not addressing any of the actual grounds of debate at all. And so this college freshman who tried to debate on the merits of debate and not take the positions that this professor forced him to take ended up getting kicked out of his class. And there's a long case about it. But the recordings that Michael Moreno kept are damning. And it is such an indictment of where academia has gone.
Oh, it's just that, I mean, sorry, but that's like not at all surprising or shocking or anything. I've heard that story, some version of that story, hundreds of times. I've experienced that story. Like, I've been a participant in that kind of story, not hundreds, but like dozens of times. dating back to when I was in college, and there was a performance art thing. This was like, I went to Antioch College, which is like super duper hippie punk rock, crazy countercultural college, anarchist college. It's that kind of place. And like everybody's kind of, I was the square, I was the straight guy. I mean, everybody's wild and crazy. It's like the East Village like has a college. And there was a performance art piece being done at one of our public events. And these three guys they intended it to be anti-Christian, which tells you what Antioch is all about. It's like this so they had all these crosses mounted on the wall, and then they had a big like trash can fire, you know, in the middle. And at one point, and these guys were they were trying to make an anti-Christian message, right? Which that was totally cool. That was fine. No problem. Everybody's watching this anti-Christian performance art piece, like taking crosses and putting them in the fire, kind of anti-Christian. Okay. So they grab a big cross, put it in the fire. Dude, they were expelled from Antioch College permanently. Why? Because it traumatized Black students who believed that the Ku Klux Klan was on campus. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Look it up. 1988. I was the editor of the newspaper then. I know of what I speak. I covered this. Yes, so I've seen it. That was in 1988 when I was a senior in college. And then I was in these places. I was in the very liberal colleges all across this country for 25 years. I mean, as a student, grad student, and professor, I know this shit. It is like so racist that it becomes like the air you breathe, and you forget to be critical minded when it comes to this. So the Civil Rights Act of 1964, everyone, is super clear. Discrimination based on race is illegal in spaces that they call public accommodations, which means places that are open to the public, including commercial places, right?
Well, also, I mean, if you talk about universities, these are places that receive billions of dollars of federal funding each year.
Dude, yeah, okay. That's actually a segue maybe into something so the federal student loan program is massive and basically subsidizes much of admissions. That's only a little piece of it. And here's the piece that the woke radical left, who cares so much about poor people, this is where they really do great. Have you ever heard of any leftist professor or student at any university say anything about the funding that their school gets from the Department of Motherfucking Defense?
No, I've never, but I know it's a lot. The only time I hear it brought up is when there's a Free Palestine rally, and it's not brought up by professors, it's brought up by the protesters. But that's the only time on a college campus I hear about it.
So I was at Columbia for a long time, and so super left-wing, super woke, the whole 9 yards place. It's just like all the rest, but especially so, and just more high-powered. So there were all sorts of protests about this and that. I remember participating in a massive campus-wide protest after the Rodney King verdict, right? Everybody came out in the streets for the Rodney King. And that was in LA. We were in New York. Still, nonetheless, everyone got way into that shit. The School of International and Policy Affairs, that's Columbia's graduate political public policy program. You can look at the roster of secretaries of state, assistant secretaries of state, CIA directors, assistant CIA directors, ex-CIA agents who came out and gave their biography publicly. Oh, it's a feeder. It's a feeder school to the Central Intelligence Agency, and has been since at least the 1950s, since the CIA has been around. That's what SEPA's for. Georgetown's the same way. Do you ever hear about anybody? They were recently, and my friend Adam Rothman, who's been on Unregistered before, he's a professor of history there. He's part of this, unfortunately, I think on the wrong side. But anyway, there's a huge thing there where they are coming to terms. They're having a reckoning about their racist history as an institution, because it turns out that slaves built part of Georgetown. Like, no shit, it was a slave state, whatever. I mean, Who cares? Oh no, that's a big thing. All sorts of attention is paying. Oh, Georgetown? Like, it's known that's how you get a job in not just the CIA, but the whole military industrial complex right there. You get, because even like the defense contractors need lobbyists who think like you do, you know, all that whole world is just, that's all they do. Georgetown, all of them. Harvard, the JFK school. Why do you think it's called the JFK school? Named after a president. What do you think they do? That's all they do. Samantha Power hangs out there. That's her school. Like Cass Sunstein hangs. All these people who run the world. That is the empire, brothers and sisters, of the left. That is those are the people who are responsible for everything. Everything. Your brown and black brothers and sisters around the world. Think about what those people did to your people. Think about what those schools, those universities, and the people who came out of them did to your brown and black sisters and brothers in Africa, every continent, since the advent of the U.S. national security state. Who do you think put the Black Panthers in prison, set them up, and killed Fred Hampton? Who do you think killed 2 million peasants in Vietnam who are poorer than you are? Like, who? I mean, it's your. These are the places.
Who set up the color revolutions, you know, that destabilized Libya and the Middle East and brought slavery back to the Middle East, you know? Like, if I didn't stop talking, I could go the rest of the day listing all the mass murders of brown and black people committed by the United States of America by the people who come out of those schools that these Black radicals, these pro-affirmative action people are so passionate about entering and becoming a part of. Oh, I see who's on the cover of the CIA website now. Go look it up, everybody. It's this cool looking young black woman with little twisty braids, I think, and like a little nose ring. That's the CIA. Oh, I see. So y'all just want to be part. You all want to be the empire now. Okay. So it's going to be the same shit, different color. Okay. It's so funny. It's so funny to see these universities put out statements about affirmative action and how much they are still committed to the prospect of diversity. And then they bring up viewpoint diversity as being a huge part of affirmative action when, you know, the effect of affirmative action has been the exact opposite. And they don't care about viewpoint diversity at all, because if they did, they'd appreciate Clarence Thomas.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And so like, if they were entering the university and being like, okay, we have a 10-point plan to reform the national security state, you know, or fuck that. How about said one thing about the national security state? It's irrelevant to them. They are a monocausal movement. They care about one thing and one thing only. God help us if they have to teach, you know, anything other than African-American studies, because these people are told from the get-go to not think about anything but black people and their oppression. Mm-hmm. So this is what's happening. It is the massive scandal in the middle of the most important institution in American society. It has been there since the 1960s. It has just gotten worse and worse and worse, worse and worse and worse and worst too. And it is, as I said, it's the most racist institution in America. Now, the right wing has been on to this since the jump. The right wing has been noticing since the 1970s that the left, and especially a very hard, very privileged left, had taken over the universities. But I feel like in the last few years, you know, that people are starting, sort of normies are starting to catch on to it. And I think a lot of boys, 18 years old, are not going to college. We know this, are choosing not to. More and more young men are choosing not to go to college. Not to mention the costs of it. I mean, I could go on and on, but the affirmative action thing, finally, the last thing I guess I want to say about it, but is just that, and this feeds into what I've been saying earlier about the function of the university and what it does. I mean, the elite university, the Harvards and the UNCs, the ones we're talking about here, have always been explicitly, pretty much, places where the elite sorts itself from the chaff. These have always been, I mean, by definition, elitist institutions, because that's their purpose, right? Their stated purpose is to pick the best people the best 18-year-olds, and then train them for a life of service.
Ben Shapiro talks about this his first day at Harvard Law. I forget who it was who said this, but some big time graduate out there working in the State Department or whatever came to Harvard University and said, "You guys are the leaders of tomorrow. We are explicitly training you to be like this. You're better than everyone else. Congratulations, you've already made it. You're already here. You are going to run the world."
Of course. Yeah. I mean, it's really clear when you're at a school like that. Well, like when I was at Columbia, you could really see it. I mean, I had one of my students, I love you, Alana, but she came to me on the first day. I met her. I was her advisor, and first day I met her, she walks in and she's fresh. She's a freshman. She's 18 years old. She sits down. She says, "I want to be on the Supreme Court. How do I do it?" Like pretty directed. And I think she went to law school. I don't know where she ended up, but she's not. I know she's not on the Supreme Court. I think, you know what I think? I think Ketanji Brown Jackson got her spot actually because of affirmative action. So Alana was just a Jewish girl. But anyway, yeah. So it is and always has been definitionally an elitist institution whose purpose is elitism. It is to select and create and train an elite. I mean, that's their purpose. It is not designed for the masses. If it were designed for the masses, they would allow everyone in, yet they don't. Yet they only allow in 1%. 1% at Harvard. Of course it's elite and elitist, both. So, and it also, because it has always been an elite institution, the university, and especially the elite university, it has always been, it was created by white people, for white people, and for centuries it was only for white people. It therefore proliferated, promulgated what you can call white Anglo-Saxon Protestant culture. It also wasn't for Catholics either, by the way. The university was not for Catholics. That's why the Catholics had to build their own universities. That's why I have Catholic universities all over the place. The Catholics, yeah. Hey, black people, listen to this. The Catholics did something else. Quite an oppressed people, by the way. You might want to look into that history when you get out of you're reading your 97th biography of Martin Luther King.
Real quick on that, we were talking about private schools. I taught at a Montessori school once. The entire library was biographies of Coretta Scott King. That was the entire library.
Oh, yeah. Come on. That's ridiculous. They also had Rosa Parks, didn't they?
Yeah, they had a couple posters of Rosa Parks up there, but it was mostly Coretta Scott King in there.
And Malcolm X. Come on, they have a very broad curriculum. The Catholics, seeing rampant, gross, explicit discrimination and prejudice against them practiced by American, Protestants, they just were like, nah, fuck off. We're going to go do our own thing. And they established their own church. They didn't try to assimilate into Protestant churches. So if you're so proud of your culture, go do that. And actually, to their credit, there are way more black applicants to the HBCUs now than ever before. And I've seen just myself recently, just in the last few years, several kids who are like elite kids who are super smart, choose to go to like Morehouse and Howard. And I'm like, okay, good luck. But anyway, I mean, you're just not going to do as well. Anyway, so
we have somebody in the Rumble chat talking about Aquinas and the logical consistency of the Catholic worldview. Are we going to cover Aquinas in Unregistered Academy?
Yeah, part of the Great Book series that's coming up. Actually, we're going to do that. Yeah, we're going to do Augustine next, and then Aquinas after him. So yeah,
sweet.
He's hard, man. Aquinas is a tough one.
Yeah.
But also so key to understanding so much of our civilization, and every single Catholic intellectual I've ever talked to mentions Aquinas every other paragraph. So yeah, he's fundamental. Yeah, we're gonna do him. So anyway, I don't know. Yeah, there's a lot more to be said about the affirmative action thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
well, do you think this will have the positive effect of incoming black academics not feeling like they were given preferential treatment and being more assured?
Okay, so this is one thing to be said. I don't know if people read the fine print today about this, but so John Roberts in his ruling writes quite directly and explicitly says, I can't remember the exact words, you can look it up. He says, you know, you will also not be allowed, you're also not allowed to sneak in racial admissions through essays, right?
No, I think he said you are allowed. I think he said you are
no, not his decision. No. Read the decision.
Okay.
Yeah. Unless I mixed up my documents, but I'm 90% sure about that.
Okay. Let me look this up. I'm pretty sure he actually said that you are allowed. I think he said that you can use your lived experience in an essay to draw upon your credentials and your capabilities.
Yes, I know, but he says you right, but that's still the point of that. The point of that, thank you, is to say you can still advantage someone who has overcome an obstacle in life, and overcoming racism or discrimination is overcoming an obstacle, but you don't get, that does not get special treatment in itself, right? In other words, it's just a crime you overcame, not a hate crime, right? So that's, but he says very clearly in the decision also, Michael, you should look at it. He says, I forget the words exactly, but he says you cannot use essays to sneak in, as I said, racial preferences. So it's a little it's a little confusing. It's a kind of a subtle point they're making, the Supreme Court, and I'm sure no normies will get this. But here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. It's all irrelevant, right? Because guess what? They're still going to do it. I mean, so here's what's going to happen. Here's exactly what's going to happen. They will continue to do this through essays, because the Supreme Court did open up that little tiny loophole. They don't mean this, though. I'm just saying the court doesn't mean to allow this. They don't want to allow this, but nonetheless, it's going to happen. They're going to do it through the essays. Every black kid's going to write about how being black was so hard for them, as they were, as they were finishing their 8 years at a Montessori school in the suburbs, because it's all black middle class and upper class kids. Disgusting. So disgusting. Like Sasha and Malia, is that their names? Obama. Imagine them getting affirmative action. So they're going to cheat. They're going to still do as much affirmative action as they can, kind of behind their backs, like that, behind the backs of the court.
All the statements by universities are explicitly saying this, pretty much.
Oh yeah, totally. That's what I was going to say. Harvard did basically put out a statement in which they pretty much promised to do this. So, but then again, the data will nonetheless accumulate, and we will see, black acceptance rates, and how blacks with 1,200 SATs got into Harvard, like, huh? And this Chinese kid with 1,800 and a 4.0, and community service, and runs his parents' fucking restaurant too. He didn't get in. God, to fuck over these Asian immigrants.
Often first-generation Asian immigrants.
I mean, it's like, I'm sorry, no black person in America has had as hard a time as someone who was born in Cambodia and got on a boat and came to America and started a business without speaking English and made a living for them and their family. No one's ever. That's the hardest thing there is. And fuck yourselves for hurting those people.
I can't tell you how many times I was at a college party and the Asian immigrants were listening to the white students like trash America and just trash everything about this country. And they go, my family overcame starvation to come here. We lived in a one-room apartment for years. I could barely speak the language, and I just got here. And you're telling me it's awful? Like,
man.
Yeah.
What like the left does to immigrants, and then what the right does to immigrants. I'm just like, God, these poor people, leave them alone. But this is one of the, you could argue that that this was also this was a pro-immigration decision. Oh, absolutely.
Very much.
Right. That's exactly what it is. It's a pro-immigration. I mean, I don't know if the justices had this in mind. I sure wish that isn't Sotomayor some famously daughter of immigrants or something like that. I'm sure she didn't ever think of this, but this encourages immigration. If that you can get your kid into, an elite institution in this other country, you're going to go there and you're going to try to make it work. And that's exactly what all these Asian families have done. Man, these poor kids who saw, the blatant, I guess, anti-Asian discrimination started when? Like, did they have records about that? What do they say? From the beginning, or was it like 2000s? Do we know?
Probably 90s and 2000s. I'm not sure.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. The kid, just those poor kids, like their parents worked so hard. The kids worked so hard. They did everything right. They got perfect scores, perfect grades, and didn't get in. And some jackass who probably dropped out a year later, just got in. I mean, it's just like amazing. Think about all the pain. I mean, that's a lot of pain, because that's when because those immigrant families, they devote their lives to their kids' education. Like, that's the most important thing to them. That's the most important thing to them. If you ask them, they all say that. And, getting into one of the good schools is the most important thing for them. And to work so hard, to sacrifice so much, and for your kids to do the same, and to not get in because of this racist shit, and racism against a people who in this country have been historically incredibly oppressed. And I've seen some insanely offensive comments made by was it Nina Turner? Somebody like that, some lefty Democrat type, about how Asians have never, I don't know, can't compare to the suffering and oppression of African Americans. I'm just like, who was that who said that? I forget. Someone like that. I'm just like, I almost tweeted, just Google alien land law. And those aliens weren't black people. Those were Japanese people who had all their land and property stolen by the state of California in the 1920s, and then given out to white farmers. Please, this is not even we're not even at the internment yet. I mean, what they did to Japanese in this country just in about a 30-year span, that whole generation of Japanese people, it's incredible those people survived that. And then after internment, after being in concentration camps for 3.5 years, what do those people do? They come right back into our society and build amazing businesses and become the most successful farmers, producing, much of our produce. Much of California's amazing produce is Japanese farmers. They're the best, always have been. That's why they stole their land. But that's what they did. Like, you want to talk about heroic? Like, man, the Japanese Americans in about a 70-year period, that's a story. Like, what a heroic thing for a group of people to do. Just incredible. And yeah, sorry, no black person in this country overcame any of that. It's certainly not during those 100 years. Hell no. Or 70 years. Yeah. It's disgusting. The left, liberals, our institutions are all fundamentally racist, aggressively so, on a daily basis. And they actually use post-racial as a slur now.
Yeah, it's a naive way of thinking that upholds white supremacy, that post-racial is a dog whistle.
To want a post-racial society, just they say that to be post-racial is bad.
Mm-hmm. Not aspirational, but bad. Yeah.
Jesus.
Do you remember back in 2016, around then, there were some high-profile protests at liberal arts schools that black students were disproportionately failing these institutions? And so the only conclusion that could be drawn from that is that the administration is racist and that the curriculum is racist, and that it's not that these students are being given opportunities that they aren't prepared for, and so they're failing when held to high standards that they're not ever put to and they don't know how to anticipate.
Okay, so yeah, right. No, they never will ever entertain the thought that maybe there's something in black culture that might be causing this.
Or in this specific instance, it's better to, let black students apply to HBCUs or a state college where they're more prepared to handle the workload, as opposed to, yeah.
So to me, the defining, distinguishing feature of black working class culture from slavery to the present time has been a rejection or disinterest toward the white American dominant culture, including its institutions. Sort of just not interested, and they're going to do their own thing over here. Now, that's a big mix of things, because one of the white institutions they don't respect is the law. So, I mean, it's just true. I mean, they simply do not have respect for that authority. That's a white man.
John McWhorter talks about this all the time, that
Yeah.
he sees black people jaywalking more often than others,
Yeah.
other little petty crimes like that.
Right. So this is this is like what I've mostly written about, actually. I mean, this is like one of the main themes in Renegade history. So that means that, you know, they said, forget about Beethoven. We don't care about Beethoven. We're going to go have Louis Armstrong. We're going to make Louis Armstrong. We're going to make, that's the great part of it. That's the awesome part. But the other part is that, yeah, fuck police and laws and court and prison and punishment and shame and guilt associated with crime. Fuck that shit. I'm going to be a criminal. So, I mean, you have super high rates of criminality. It's just true among African Americans, and that's always been true, by the way. And this is why in Black folklore, if you look at Staggo Lee and Dolomite and the great stories that have been passed down for generations and generations, the hero in all those stories is a criminal.
Have you been listening to Killer Mike's new album?
And Mike will tell you this too. Like, he and I talked about this a lot, actually, on it when I was on this pod. Oh, he just said today he's going to start a podcast. So I'm going to see if I can get him to get me back on there. But yeah, the Lost podcast. I mean, one of the great crimes of the century. Did a 3-hour conversation with Mike for a Huffington Post podcast that never happened, and the producers have sat on it and refused to give it to me. And we talked about this. Mike's really into basically what I would call like non-bourgeois black behavior. You know, the bad stuff, which now bad can be bad and bad can be good. So bad can be criminality, and bad can be being an amazing rapper, like Mike is, and an amazing orator. Another big part of black culture has been oratory. I mean, the greatest orators in American history are all black, every damn one of them. And by the way, one of them is now running for president. One of the greatest American orators in American history is running for president. And his name ain't Kennedy. His name is Brother West. No, he is. Cornell West. Yeah, I mean, certainly of my lifetime, I can't, who else can even compare?
I mean, I only vote for black men named West.
Everybody go do yourself a favor and listen to Cornell West. Go watch a YouTube video. I don't care. It doesn't even matter. Cornell always brings it. And he's watch the way he weaves together ideas seamlessly while maintaining this preacher's flow throughout. And he takes you on emotional ups and downs. And it's like, he's one of the very, very, very few people who pays attention to how they speak and pays attention to it as a craft. And you might even say as an art, which it comes straight out of the black church, baby. And so much of like our culture that's good stuff comes out of the black church.
Yeah, it is a masterclass. Masterclass is kind of a weird platform, but he has a masterclass course on philosophy, which is amazing, where he ties Plato to John Coltrane, and he does it beautifully, the way Cornell West only can. Yeah,
I remember seeing him like in the 1980s or 90s at the Socialist Scholars Conference in Manhattan. All these like frumpy, old, nasty Marxist dudes walking around, thick glasses, and Cornell gets up and gives this talk about how democracy is like a jazz band. I was like, what? What's this Negro talking about? And he says, no, it's like, you know, everybody plays along with the melody. The whole band plays along with the melody, but then one of you takes off into a solo and is free for a while and is creative and free for a while. But is also contributing to the overall effect of the song. And then they return, he said. They return to playing the melody with the band, and then the next person takes their turn, which makes democracy sound awesome and got me really excited about democracy. I now know that it's tyranny of the mob, so don't worry, everybody. I'm still good. But yeah, it was a beautiful metaphor, though, and that's the kind of thing that Cornell can do.
We talked about this a couple weeks ago, in that Wynton Marsalis makes the exact same analogy the other way around, that jazz is like democracy.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And he had a lecture series at Harvard, but I wouldn't be surprised, you know, if somebody who ended up being a bureaucrat heard Cornell's West lecture in the 80s or 90s, and that became, you know, what got federal funding for Wynton Marsalis's band.
Oh,
the Kennedy Center.
Well, I mean, Cornell's rise started in the 80s. And that was basically the rise. I mean, I don't want to say, I mean, of course, some of it has to do with affirmative action, cultural affirmative action. I mean, of
Sure.
course, I mean, speaking of like superstars who have written their own ticket, Cornell has taught at Columbia, Harvard, Yale, and Princeton. I mean, he just does it. He just rotates, and he's done that, some of them twice, I believe. I think he's been at Princeton at least twice. It's hilarious. Yeah, I would say though that he did his rise coincided with the rise of identity politics and the rise of this culture of pandering to blacks and patronizing blacks, which makes me want to throw up. But yeah, so but he's nonetheless quite brilliant. And even though it's funny because I don't like his politics, I mean, he's great on war, he's great on foreign policy. He's good on some stuff like cops and police and all that, cops and prisons. I mean, but you know, he's a great person. Like one of the very few people in politics I can say that about. Maybe the only one. I can't think of anybody in American high politics who I consider to be a great person, but he is one. And I know that from personal experience, from dealing with him too, and other people too. And he's really brilliant in a way. I mean, in certain ways, I think he's kind of limited too, conceptually in certain ways, but no, he does things with the language and politics and poetry and music all together. I mean, yes, he's also infamously a rapper. He has a rap album out. I have not listened to it because I don't want to think poorly of Cornell. But you know, he still did it. Like that's a good thing, right?
Yeah. His voice can be heard on interludes for Brother Ali and Immortal Technique.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, Brother Ali. I love that dude. What's that one track? I love that one track.
Forrest Whitaker. There's so many, but
maybe, yeah. God, what's that one track? I played that over and over again. That's right. Cornell West is on there too. Yeah. So yeah, let's talk Ukraine.
Oh wow, yeah.
From Cornell West to Yevgeny Prigozhin.
Yeah.
Dude, do you know what I found out that he's apparently he's Jewish.
Real?
And,
yeah.
And like from an intellectual family. Apparently, someone did some deep dive on Prigozhin's history. I think it was like the Atlantic or somewhere. It's a reputable source. So I haven't checked it out, but if he's like from a Jewish intellectual family, that tells you a lot about so much of what's going on here is does in fact speak to what the liberals have been saying about Russia for a while. There's something clearly sort of broken and incompetent, obviously, but you know what it is though? About Russian society, about Russian government.
Okay.
So sorry, let's back this up. On Saturday, the leader of the Wagner group, which is this mercenary army, which has been doing most of the fighting, most of the frontline fighting in Ukraine for the Russian military. They're being paid literally by the Russian military. They're not formally a part of the Russian military. And they basically won the Battle of Bakhmut. They're the ones who captured Bakhmut. And Prigozhin, their leader, Yevgeny Prigozhin, never served in the military. He has no military background whatsoever. It's funny as hell. What did he actually do? He was Putin's chef. And you can actually see pictures of George W. Bush and Vladimir Putin having a state dinner in Moscow, in the Kremlin, with Prigozhin standing behind both of them as the proud chef, overseeing his dinner that he just produced. Yes. So about 6 months ago, is that right? When did he start blowing up? 3 months ago? When did Prigozhin start losing his mind? Many weeks anyway. For many weeks, Prigozhin has been like issuing these crazy, wild statements denouncing the defense minister and the basically second in command of the Russian military, Shoigu and Gerasimov, who are the top two guys in the military. They're like Lloyd Austin and Mark Milley for Russia. Okay. He never denounced Putin because he's apparently still buddies with Putin. The whole thing is bizarre. He issues these videos. He's calling them cunts and fuckers and bastards and talking about their children. And
yeah,
he's saying that they're fucking over the Wagner group by not sending them enough ammunition, and that therefore all of his men are dying. And he had a video standing in front of about 50 corpses of Wagner soldiers lying there, and he's screaming, and he's comically ugly too.
Well, this comports with what actually happened, though, with the attempted coup, or whatever you want to call it, in that it was mostly an internal battle, and he never really had aspirations to take out Putin like the mainstream media started to hope.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a causal analysis of it's kind of the big thing that's going on here, which is, why did Putin hire a fucking mercenary army to fight this war? I mean, with this lunatic at the head of it. Oh, so Saturday, sorry, I finished the story. Okay. Saturday, this last Saturday, Prigozhin, he does all these videos. Saturday, he actually orders his men to march on or drive on to Rostov, which is where the Southern Command was, and apparently they were in the middle of that city for a while and sort of threatening the military command there. Then they left, and then they've got on the road and started driving toward Moscow, and they got within, I don't know, 300 or 400 miles. Roadblocks.
Well, some more context: no shots fired in this uprising, in this attempted coup. And if you look at the videos of it, I mean, you could see these Wagner people ordering burgers and being relatively.
So the liberals are saying that actually something like 7 Russian soldiers were killed because they shot down some helicopters, and that might be true. I don't know yet, but it sounds fishy to me. I sort of doubt it. But anyway, so yeah, it was at most a few people were killed, which, you know, in this war is a drop in the bucket, unfortunately. But anyway, so then less than 24 hours after this craziness starts, it's announced that Prigozhin's calling off his troops. He's calling off the whatever. Well, he never called it an attack. I think he called it a march, as a protest, basically. And he got no charges against him. Total mutiny. Treason. This is death by hanging in any reasonable republic.
Putin is a brutal dictator. Doesn't he murder his political opponents?
Right, exactly. Yeah. When you launch an armed invasion on the capital of Russia, he doesn't even kill you. My goodness gracious. Yeah. He called off this protest, whatever you want to call it, and he has refuge in Belarus. So he gets to stay in Belarus, no prosecution. It's all good. They just let it, and no one in Wagner, I think there were about 3,000 or 4,000 soldiers in Wagner who participated in this. Putin also gave them amnesty. These guys took up arms against the government of Russia, and they're not even getting prosecuted. And all the Wagnerites who didn't participate in the mutiny, it was a mutiny, that's the word for it, who didn't participate in the mutiny, they're getting absorbed into the Russian military. So Wagner will cease to exist, which is nice, I think. But anyway, like, so why, here's the question: why did Putin hire a mercenary army headed by a lunatic to be the front? Go ahead.
Oh, the easy answer is that he knows that the Russian people don't want to fight a land war, and they don't want their people to be conscripted.
You're so damn smart, Michael Weimer. Yeah, I mean, now I think, but I haven't. I was going to look at these numbers today when I had this brilliant idea about why Putin did that. My hunch is, but I need to prove this, I need to look at the data, is that most, maybe all countries, I've seen anecdotal evidence of this, most, maybe all countries in the world since about Vietnam, but especially in the last 20 or so years, 20 to 30 years, have suffered from declining enlistment in the military. That fewer and fewer military age men in all countries are choosing military service. I know that's true in the United States, and I know it's true in Russia. Well, and I know it's true in the UK, and I'll bet you anything it's true in almost every country.
Yeah, to counter the China hawks, I'm pretty sure it's true in China. I'm pretty sure.
China,
especially because of the one-child policy. You do not want your only son going out in your bloodline in the land war.
God, I never thought of that.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Right. What Chinese parents have to think about, especially nowadays.
Especially a culture of ancestor worship like that.
Hey,
you do not want that.
We want your only child to go fight against the United States and Taiwan. How about that? Good. So there's a global shortage of troops, but especially in Russia. I know that Russia's been, before the war started, they had declining enlistment going on for a while. So Putin had no choice, as you just said so beautifully and succinctly, unlike me. He was forced to hire these mercenaries to make up for the lack of national spirit in among his own people. And to all that, and everybody knows what side I've been on in this war, which is neither side. To all that, I say amen to the Russian people. Thank you. God bless you. You're my heroes for refusing to merge your identity with the nation state. Thank you so much. I mean, clearly some have, but you know, if they were true nationalists, I mean, they'd be out there fighting themselves. These fancy Muscovites and St. Petersburgians, whatever they're called, people who live in the cities in Russia, you know, they're not there. It's well known that the elites in Russia have nothing to do with this war. They're not. No one's fighting. No one's enlisting. No one's serving in the military. So who doesn't, except for the people who are drafted, of course. There's just very little willingness. And this is also, I think, why you've seen some incompetence in the Russian military, because they just don't have enough good, not just enough soldiers, but enough good soldiers. So it's a global resistance to military service that is part of the world we live in. And I do a lot of complaining about your generation, about the culture these days, and about a lot of stuff. But I think that might be a really good thing. I just think we're going to have fewer. We will not have mass land wars, kind of as you were saying.
That is the best iteration of our apathy, is our unwillingness to fight wars.
Yeah, right, exactly. Oh, we'll send some drones over there by remote control to kill some people. Sure, we'll do. That's cool.
We'll play Call of Duty for you, but
we'll play Call of Duty and fantasize, yeah, about killing the Browns. So that's why Putin did it. So why? So there's the whys for Putin. The why for Putin. Why this happened? Because Putin had no choice but to hire a lunatic with a mercenary army of ex-convicts.
Can I give you a 4D chess conspiracy theory?
Sure.
So Prigozhin is exiled to Belarus.
Right.
Wagner relocates to basically 100 miles north of Kiev. Wow. So aren't they perfectly poised to attack? And could this be another great, brilliant Napoleonic misdirection that Scott Ritter has been praising Putin for this entire time?
Oh, God. No. All I know is that Alexander Mercurius totally laughs off that possibility.
Okay.
And if he really dismisses something, then I have to take it seriously. I don't think so. I also, just from what I've seen of the way Putin operates, and that would be pretty.
Putin seemed genuinely distressed as this was going down.
Yeah. No, this was not good. This was definitely not good for Russia. Although some people are arguing that it's actually good for Putin. It actually consolidates his power because people see it. Well, so let me talk about the why Prigozhin did what he did. He's famously an oligarch. I don't know what his actual wealth is, but it is claimed that he's extremely wealthy. So what would this guy want? Well, I mean, I don't know, but there was a report about 2 months ago, I think it was, of him that Prigozhin had actually offered, while he was feuding with the Russian central staff, with the defense ministry, he was offering to Ukraine to give them the locations of Russian troops to more easily bomb them. Now, we've never fully confirmed that report. But Prigozhin was very clearly 2 or 3 months ago trying to hurt Russia, not just being a turncoat and not interested in protecting himself or his troops, but actually interested in sabotaging the Russian operation, right? Inflicting damage on it. Also, on Saturday, during the mutiny, the day before, I think it was, and I think the 2 days before, for a couple of days before the mutiny, the stuff he was saying, he was releasing all sorts of videos during that time. And this is when his rhetoric changed to disputing the justificatory arguments made by Putin and Russia for the invasion. He was saying, oh no, there was no plan by Ukraine to invade Donbass in February. I forget, what was it? There was something, he just was disputing the argument, the intellectual and moral basis for the Russian operation. He was attacking it. Now, someone who was just and Prigozhin was famous for going right to the front lines. Like, that dude was living in Bakhmut for months. He had videos from the front line. You could see it. So not a scared dude, not a coward, at least physically. A guy who was like risking his life for the Russian state and for this operation specifically, and who was Putin's best friend, or one of his best friends, or at least very close to him. For him to like attack the very reason for this operation, for this war, tells me that there must have been some involvement by either the UK or the US. They had to offer him something to do this. What do you think?
I don't think so. I think this is more a case of somebody doing the hard work and being on the front lines and feeling like he's not appreciated and supported by the people back in Moscow. That's what I think it is. Somebody in the Rumble chat brought up that Scott Ritter said that the reason why Wagner was used is that this was a special operation at first. It wasn't an actual war. So in Russia,
Scott agrees with me.
Yeah. Oh, he thinks
he's the only other commentator I've seen on this who says straight up, the West got to Prigozhin. Mm-hmm. The West turned him. The West gave him something. Yeah. Scott says that straight up. He said it on the Politano show.
Okay.
Yeah. And I haven't seen, the Duran guys have not said that. They haven't even entertained. Oh no, Mercurius like said it was a rumor, but he didn't pursue it. So I don't think they believe it. I could be wrong. They could change their minds.
Yeah.
I bet. I don't know. But anyway, I'm not completely sure about this, of course, right? Because the whole thing is insane, and the whole thing was over. It started Saturday morning and was over, I think, by Saturday night or something like that. But
right.
Yeah. So, but you got to keep your eyes on the UK. Is really capable of doing something like that because they've been fanatics about this war. I mean, much more so than the US. The political class in the UK, the media in the UK are just like so into this war, and they just love killing Russians, and they're incredibly Russophobic. I could see MI6 working out a deal with Prigozhin. I just don't know what they would give him because he's so wealthy.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's not so wealthy. I don't know. Or maybe, I don't know.
Here's what I want to ask about, and this might be a very, very hard and niche question to answer, but what do you think about Lukashenko and all this, brokering the deal to secure his exile, and the role that he's been playing in being this intermediary, still fighting off neoliberalism at home in Belarus? But yeah.
So that's probably the part that's toughest for me to square with my theory about Western involvement in this, because Lukashenko is a bad guy these days, and in fact they are actively trying to throw him out. They're actively regime changing him. Belarus has been a target for years, and he is, like, right after Putin, he's enemy number 2 for the US and NATO.
The Leninists on Twitter love Lukashenko.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, right. The old communists love the new nationalists, which is interesting because it turns out, and we sort of knew this at the time, the old communists of the Eastern Bloc always were 50%, at least 50% nationalist. It was very much an Eastern European or Russian communism. But
well, when the nationalists start to nationalize things, the communists are happy. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but they're anti-imperialists, right?
Totally.
And that's why they like Lukashenko and Putin. So same reason I like them, by the way. But I don't like them the way that they do. I'm glad that they're operating. I'm glad that they're doing what they're doing.
Your anti-imperialism comes from different instincts.
So to get Lukashenko involved in this, that part I have a hard time figuring out how the West would do that with Lukashenko, who's an enemy. I mean, could they do this in a way in which Lukashenko doesn't know that the West was involved? Maybe that's what it was. Maybe Prigozhin probably was tight with Lukashenko. I'm sure he was, and had to be. And right, he just said, yo, we can settle this, guys. You know, no bloodshed, and I'll walk away. Just give me a place to stay. And Lukashenko was like, cool. And he's now letting a CIA plant live in his country. I don't know. I just don't see it. I don't understand the motivation for Prigozhin. This is after the fall of Bakhmut. He's won his big battle. He's a national hero also, by the way, because of that. He's super popular because of Bakhmut in Russia among ordinary people. Like, why? Why then? You know? So
again, I feel like it's not unreasonable to think that he felt like his hands were tied by incompetent leadership in Moscow. And he's part of the faction in Russia that wanted to go way harder, way faster on this war.
You mean just accept it at face value? Just what he's saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
right.
Occam's razor in this case, you know, accept the simplest answer.
Well, I got to say, other than Scott Ritter, I haven't heard any of the top analysts of this stuff say anything other than what you're saying, that it is what it seems to be, that there's no subterfuge here. There's no secret deal going on. I don't know. I still think it's a bizarre thing to do. I mean, let's say that's true. Let's say that it was what he said it was, which was a protest against incompetent leadership in Moscow. He sent a column of tanks to Moscow. I mean, yeah, that's fairly serious. I mean, and it's so theatrical too, and so dramatic. It just feels like something the West would have been behind.
Potentially, I'm not going to rule out that this was some sort of symbolic effort, that there's a huge cultural divide that us in the West cannot understand. But yeah, I'm not ruling out the possibility of MI6 or the CIA being involved either.
Yeah. I wonder, it could also be, and this, now we're just speculating, but it could also be that the West got in the communications, got between Prigozhin, who was in the field all the time, and Moscow, and actually maybe got involved in their communications and possibly convinced Prigozhin of incompetence. Maybe they somehow told him. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
something fishy going on. It just, come on. Does it really make sense that a guy would do that to protest something? Send a column of tanks toward Moscow, 3,000 men, armed men.
He was stockpiling weapons on his own and not using them for the war effort is kind of weird, right? That he was doing that for months. So that is the fishiest part of it to me. But yeah, all we could do is speculate. You know,
he was planning it since he started talking shit, which is a few months ago. You know, they one of the things they found in the salt mines underneath Bakhmut, it's the largest underground room in the world, happens to be under Bakhmut in Ukraine. And there's lots of speculation about what was under there, why it was so important to Ukraine to defend that. And they found a huge weapons cache. It was basically it was an underground depot, ammunition depot, and mostly small arms, but still like a whole bunch of rifles they found, and grenades, I think. So not grenades, but definitely rifles. That could have been part of it, because he was snatching tons of weapons in Bakhmut. Also from all the dead Ukrainians. I mean, at least 10,000 Ukrainians died in Bakhmut. So it's that's 10,000 rifles right there. Yep.
So did you see what our esteemed head of state, Joe Biden, had to say when he was asked, how do you think Putin is doing now that this happened?
Yes, I did.
Yep.
It's hard to tell, but he's clearly losing the war in Iraq. He's losing the war at home. And he has become a bit of a pariah around the world. It's not just NATO. It's not just the European Union. It's Japan. It's 40 nations.
Joe.
Putin is losing the war in Iraq.
I mean, I just think, what is it, 5 more years now? Yeah, it'll be 5 if he does the next term.
Well, with the affirmative action thing, Michelle Obama released a very concise, well, not concise, but a very professional looking statement about it, as though she was some head of state. So
Right.
there's speculation that she's going to run. And KJP has not been defending Biden against the corruption allegations recently. She's been sort of avoiding it. So it seems like the walls are closing in on Biden with the corruption allegations. And that might be a good out for him to not serve another 4 years.
Some fairly establishment kind of liberal person, was it Jonathan Turley? Somebody like that said something recently that was staggering about how the Biden crime family, he called it. I mean, he said something like they are in another league among grifters in government, among, dishonest, corrupt politicians and government officials. He said the Biden family is ahead of everybody else. I mean, I would say, well, there's the Clintons, but besides the Clintons, yes, seems like it. So, and it does seem, well, they indicted Hunter. I mean, now Hunter's under indictment. Yeah, now we got discovery going on. We don't know even what they're discovering, but it's a lot of good stuff. I mean, that's ugly.
The Clintons are Michael Corleone, and the Bidens are Fredo.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. They're trying to work their way up.
Yeah, and
ladder.
Comically failing spectacularly.
Yeah, but they're definitely made. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, I've been wondering that, in fact, recently about Biden, if he feels like the things are closing in on him. Mm-hmm. He seems the same as always, but he could be so doped up and out of it that he doesn't feel stuff. So he might not be stressed because he's on so many drugs.
It's incredibly sad to watch every single time. He was like weirdly wandering off a stage on MSNBC recently. The gaffes are getting worse, and it really looks like nobody's home.
His walk is what really is disturbing. Mm-hmm. The way he walks, there's a name for that.
Yeah,
for that stiff gait he has, and it's what happens to old people, mm-hmm. and it's just obvious. Like, I don't know, but I even, as much as I despise Joe Biden, I don't like watching that, and I wish they would stop making me watch it. I didn't like watching him fall down at the Air Force graduation thing. That was bad. He's going to really hurt himself. That's the thing. You know what? Oh God.
That's the out. He injures himself.
And that's why Biden leaves office. And I think it'll be truly accidental. I think he's going to take a fall that's going to injure him severely. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's almost, especially with all the walking around he has to do. Right. I mean, he's got to walk all kinds of places with all sorts of people around him and cords and stuff on the ground. I mean, he's not just a regular 80-year-old, mm-hmm. Who can sit in his couch all day. He's going to take a huge fall. I bet you anything there's an aide or two aides who are responsible for only that.
That job is a demanding toll for anybody of any age.
But the thing is, as president, there are many times when you have to walk by yourself. You can't have an aide right next to you. You can't have anybody right next to you. What is Emmanuel Macron going to catch you at the NATO summit when you fall off the stage? That's how Biden exits the presidency. That's right.
Well,
didn't think of that.
Regardless of his mental state, I think it's notable to say George Bush made the exact same Freudian slip a few months ago. I've got that clip.
Oh, yeah.
The result is an absence of checks and balances in Russia, and the decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of of Ukraine. Iraq, anyway. 75. Here's the
He had the most evil villain snicker. I think if he had a better laugh, we wouldn't have been as mad at him about the war and all that stuff. But yeah, well, I don't know. What does that say? What do you think?
Yeah, well, why is it that the people who sold the Iraq war are experiencing Groundhog Day when it comes to the war in Ukraine?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Something about unprovoked invasions.
Mm-hmm.
Something about that. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe what they're accusing Putin of doing, they actually did. Maybe that's what it was. Yeah.
This was my appeal to all my Democrat friends in 2020 was Joe Biden is the worst senator ever on foreign policy. He was the guy who mobilized the Democrats to support the war in Iraq. There's never been a war he didn't like. It's been a comedy of errors his entire life. And this is what we got.
I have heard many people in our space say that he's the worst president ever. Very, very smart people. And I agree with them about everything involving Biden. On everything Biden has done, I'm with them, but we're not there yet.
He's not as bad as Lincoln. Or
Come on.
FDR.
No,
Yeah.
there's like a good 6 to 10 presidents.
In terms of competence, he might be the worst, but in terms of effect, I don't think he's the worst.
Oh, no, effect. No, hell no. He's not even close. I mean, it depends. If you count Ukrainian and Russian KIA as Biden's deaths, for his body count, then sure, then he's up there, but he's still not even in the top 5.
He's not touching George Bush. He's not.
You got dudes in like the mid to high 6 figures, Wilson, Roosevelt, Lincoln, Johnson, Nixon. Those guys are all hundreds and hundreds of thousands dead. Yeah, he's not there yet. But he's in the conversation, as they say. Yeah. But he's not there. He's certainly not the worst. Come on. Franklin Roosevelt, Harry Truman. There's another one. What's it, like 7 I've named already?
Yeah. Harry Truman did what Biden did in 4 years in one day. So
Harry Truman said this amazing thing when he was senator in 1941, in July of 1941, right after the German invasion of Russia, of the Soviet Union. And reports are coming in that there's like 10,000 people in a single day being killed. And the next day, 30,000 people, and an entire school building full of children was mowed down. This is the worst thing that's ever happened in human history by far, is Operation Barbarossa during World War II, right? Between Germany and Russia. And you know what Harry Truman says on the Senate floor? He says this on the Senate floor. He says, this is a great thing. Let's just let them kill each other for as long as we can. Let's just let the Russians and the Germans just kill each other as long as we can. Let that go. Wonderful thing for humanity. And so that's as close as it gets to what's happening right now. That's what Biden is doing. Biden doesn't know, but the people who actually run foreign policy, Victoria Nuland, Tony Blinken, Jake Sullivan, they know that's what this is about. It's that kind of war of attrition. They said it. Lloyd Austin said it straight up when he was in Kiev. He said the point of this war is to degrade the Russian military. Fewer Russian soldiers. And Lindsey Graham just said it last week, talking about how great it was to be killing Russians. Can you imagine having that level of sociopathy? Like, just wow. To kill people in a place you'll probably never go to again, that means nothing to your own life in terms of Lindsey Graham. He has zero personal. This tells you that ideology is a hell of a drug, man. Lindsey Graham is a true believer. He really believes this shit. He really believes that the United States should be the king of the world and that we should wipe out all opposition to us. That's his thing. Like, he could be making a lot more money in the corporate world. He doesn't have to be, he's choosing to be hated by millions of people who talk about his sexuality all the time in public because of our hatred of his politics. He wouldn't be doing this if he didn't really believe it. He really cares. He really cares about the American empire. He wants the red, white, and blue everywhere. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. We got some new faces here. So I just want to tell everybody to follow us on Odyssey and Rumble, because YouTube might be nice to us right now, but they're still limiting the reach of our videos. And eventually they will come and give us another strike. It's just inevitable. But thanks to competitors like Rumble and Odyssey, YouTube has been forced to open up on free speech a little bit more.
Anytime any of the videos that you like to watch are on Rumble, please watch it on Rumble. Rumble needs all the support. Do everything you can. Bookmark whatever you do to save shows that you watch or whatever it is you do. Try to watch it on Rumble. They're also adding features all the time, so it keeps getting better and better, but it's perfectly just as good as YouTube to watch videos with. Mm-hmm. And And they really are, so far at least, truly devoted to free speech, and have an amazing roster of people here. So
yeah.
Anyway, all right, man. I guess we're good. I was going to make some point about Lindsey Graham. I forgot what it was, but it doesn't matter.
Well, yeah.
He's gay. He's gay. Lindsey Graham is gay, and that's the main thing to know.
That was a fun moment for me at Icarus Fest. In the intermission of Gone with the Wind, I was talking with Jack about all the effeminate wives, all the effeminate husbands, Southern gentleman husbands of Scarlett in the first half.
Yeah.
I called them the Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham husbands.
Totally. God, what an amazing moment. Oh, I will be teaching starting next week.
Oh yeah.
No, sorry, week after next. July 10th is the first day. It's a 2-part live interactive webinar on neoconservatism. I've actually had many people ask me to teach this, and it is perfect timing for it. And a lot of people don't understand, especially now that people are using neoliberalism and neoconservatism when talking about even foreign policy. They've confused the masses with that, and so we're going to set that straight. And we're going to look, we're going to look at the history of these people and their intellectual development, how they formed these ideas that became the U.S. foreign policy. And that's what it is. It's a collective biography, basically, of about 20 people who made American foreign policy. They made the Ukraine war. They made the Iraq war. These people are world shapers, world shifters. These are true revolutionaries, maybe in the worst sense of the term, the most powerful political faction possibly in the history of the world, right? Think about how they've reshaped the globe. So yeah, we're going to do two sessions on this starting July 10th, unregisteredacademy.com.
Yep.
Yep.
They are Trotskyists too, as far as.
And they're also, I was thinking about that today. Yeah, we're going to talk quite a lot about their deep background as leftists, not just as leftists, but Marxists, just like my parents. They were part of the same group, actually, the neocons, as my parents were. Hardcore Trotskyists who then became leaders of the Republican and then the Democratic parties. So yeah, I think there is a lot there. You can think about it, everyone. Think about anti-Russianness, right? So I grew up being an anti-communist and anti-Soviet. I was taught that by my Trotskyist parents, right? Because you're supposed to be anti-Stalin if you're a Trotskyist. So I was always anti-Soviet, anti-communist, and that kind of bleeds over into anti-Russianism. And so I think that is what's going on. It's easy for them to have been Trotskyists then and to be neocon anti-Russianists now. So anyway, neoconservatism. It'll be Monday nights, 2 Monday nights, July 10th and the 17th, unregisteredacademy.com. It's going to be awesome.
Yep.
You were going to say something.
Well, we're going to go over to Patreon right now behind the paywall, where we really say whatever we want. Rumble frees us to not be afraid of the YouTube censors, but yeah,
that's when I let loose. And I actually speak my mind in that show. Yeah, with the patrons, because they're the only ones who deserve that. So, yeah, man. Patreon.com/unregistered. Join us. It's an hour and a half party. You don't have to. You can be anonymous. You don't have to show your face at all. Just come and watch if you want, or hang out, yell at me. But it is super fun. It's the highlight of my highlight of my week is Thursday nights. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, we're good. We covered a
cool.
lot. Yeah.
I'll see you over there.
Yep. See you over there.